Hi, this is Jennifer from the Canadian Podcast Awards, and you're listening to Tale of the Manticore.
The following podcast is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back to Tale of the Manticore, Season 3. Like the creature from which it takes its name, Tale of the Manticore is a mashup, a crossbreeding between two different species of storytelling. Here you will find the unpredictability of old-school paper and dice games with the storycraft of a dark fantasy novel. No character is sacred, and none will be spared if the dice decide their fate is at hand. According to lore, the tale of a manticore is barbed with cruel iron spikes. There will be much pain in the days ahead. Last time, on Tale of the Manticore. In Chapter 25, Achillea leads the companions as they run to the iron tower recently spotted on a nearby hill. Unfortunately, by the time they get there, it has once again vanished, leaving behind nothing more than a circle of flattened grass. Achillea is distraught, but her friends offer their support, and Durrani points out that her quest remains the same. With those words, they continue on their journey north in search of the historian, Odok Zygog. The day passes uneventfully, but at sunset, the companions hear the howl of wolves close by, and then practically collide with the vicious battle that erupts between two packs of creatures. The eternal fight between good and evil plays out in a combat between direwolves and blink dogs, with the former outnumbering the latter. The party is forced into the fight when Achillea decides unilaterally that they will step in to balance the scales. While the companions end up the victors and save two of the blink dogs, Tentir almost loses his life in the effort.
The brook's sweet song, a gentle flow, calls forth the dreams that wander near, while ancient roots hold memories dear. In nature's arms we come to know. And if you chance to look above, in dusky sky the stars ignite, a tapestry of day and night, and the moon looks down, as old as love.
That battle at the end of the previous episode was a bit of a wake-up call for me. I went into it overconfident that the PCs wouldn't be in any real danger. After all, I'd rolled a 20 for their stumble upon, and the result of my wandering encounter roll was neutral exotic creatures. The encounter was designed not to be lethal. I thought 4 injured direwolves wouldn't be a real threat to the PCs when they were so focused on the blink dogs. But I didn't think it through very well, did I? Lesson learned. When you introduce combat, there is always the chance for things to go badly. All it takes is some bad luck with the dice. And that's exactly what happened. Once the direwolves changed targets and started winning initiative rolls, things got ugly very quickly. To make things worse, I'd even thrown out a casual decision not to use any morale checks for the fight. Tentir almost died, and if he had, I would have had myself to blame for it. But, thank Ahea, he survived. With 2 hit points remaining, Tentir managed to get himself out of harm's way in time. I'm sure it's an experience he will not soon forget. And, speaking of experience, today is a level-up episode for the young elf. So let's roll some dice and see how he improves. For new hit points, I'm rolling a d6. Here we go. A 3, not what I was hoping for, but every bit helps. His current score improves to 5 out of 15. Next are potential stat increases. In the last level up, there were none, so I'm hoping to see something happen here. Let's begin. Strength. The 3 means no change. Intelligence. I've got a 4, and how about wisdom? Another 4. Dexterity. A 4 again. This isn't looking good. Constitution. A 1. Charisma. Last chance. A 3. Once again, a lackluster level up, but also like Durrani's, there's a silver lining. Tentir will get a basic attack bonus of +1 to hit for both missile and melee attacks to reflect the expertise he has gained thus far. And there is another reward for the whole party as a result of surviving the last fight. A natural 20 stumble upon indicates some kind of significant boon for the PCs, and it will be a big one, partly because of the added risk I forced the companions to take on, but also because they managed to save both Blink Dogs. If they had died, or if only one had made it, the reward would have been commensurately smaller. As to what the reward is going to be, well, you'll just have to wait and see. Chapter 26, Part 1. Day 20. Sunset. Mythic event meaning. Propose weapons. Party status. Achillea, 9 of 9 hit points. Cord, 14 of 14. Dureni, 12 of 12. Tentir, 5 of 15. Fairwind, 14 of 18. Supplies. The companions have been without food for 1 full day and have 12 portions of water remaining. Spells available. Achillea can cast Message and Glitter Dust. Cord can cast Entangle and Slow Poison. Fairwind can cast Purify Food and Water. Blood covered the grass and the ground. Likewise, the fur of the 2 surviving Blink Dogs was plastered to their sides, dark patches against white where they had been clawed and bitten. Achillea crouched down as the magical animals approached her. One was limping, holding a front paw lamely in the air. It whined with a retreating, high-pitched sound, tilting its snout upwards. The other, also injured but less egregiously, panted heavily and came right up to Achillea, who now squatted with the backs of her thighs against her calves.
"Achillea!"
warned Fairwind.
They won't harm me.
Was her simple, confident reply. She held forth a hand, palm up, to prove it. As though in confirmation, the panting Blink Dog licked it with its pink, wet tongue.
See?
She said. The dog regarded her with eyes so faintly blue that they were almost white. There was a deep intelligence in those eyes. Then, all of a sudden, both animals disappeared. Achillea almost fell over in surprise.
"The other is gone too,"
observed Fairwind. The cleric was right. The third Blink Dog, the one that had been killed before the party had joined the battle, was gone. Only a quintet of black corpses, each lupine face frozen in its death agony, remained on the bloodied grass. Now it was Dureni who spoke, and his tone belied an inner struggle.
"Achillea, you saved me from the orcs, saved my life, but you almost cost me my brother just then. Why did you rush into battle like that?"
I
stammered Achillea.
Could you not tell that those creatures were magical and good?
Dureni ignored the question and pushed on.
"You did the same thing when the tower appeared. You rushed ahead of everyone."
Achillea's face flushed hot with emotions she couldn't quite pin down. There was shame and guilt, and also reflexive anger. The latter went out for a moment.
You don't owe me anything, Dureni.
By the expression on Dureni's face, she might as well have slapped him.
"I never said I did owe you anything, Achillea,"
the elf said in a tight voice.
"I don't follow you out of obligation or debt. It is something I choose to do. But how can I continue if you only put yourself first? Achillea, Tentir could have died."
Achillea clenched her jaw to keep herself from saying more that she would regret. Something in her heart told her that Dureni was right, but it was no easy thing to admit it. She put her face in her hands and drew a deep breath. Cord stepped towards her, as did Fairwind. While the cleric couldn't understand the words being exchanged, the meaning was clear enough. He crouched down beside her and put a hand on her slight shoulder. It made Achillea guess about what the cleric had gone through, and when she looked at his face, she saw no sermon, only compassion and sympathy. She took another deep breath and got up.
You're right. I'm sorry,
she said at last. She looked at Tentir, who could barely stand, so badly hurt was he.
I put myself ahead of the group. Please forgive me.
In some ways, it was the most elven thing she had ever said. I think that Achillea and Dureni's relationship has been strained but not broken. They will reconcile as they make camp nearby. And speaking of making camp, I find myself wondering something. Is wolf meat edible? A little internet research later, I have my answer. It turns out that while it has a reputation for tasting awful, wolf meat is edible, and so by extension, I will allow that dire wolf meat is edible too, even though it probably tastes even worse. With the application of a purify food and water prayer from Fairwind, I think there's enough meat here to provide 3 days, or 12 portions, of food. 4 portions will be consumed on this day, number 20, as they have not yet eaten. Now this is not the boon the PCs receive for getting a natural 20 stumble upon. I'd be a miserly DM indeed to do that. No, the real reward will come later on. Now, this brings me to hex rolls for day 21. Let's get started. For weather. A 19 is a great roll. I penalized the companions recently for a low roll, so I'll say that sun showers throughout day 21 are enough to refresh the PCs and even allow them to collect some water that clings to nearby leaves and bushes. Next is the stumble upon roll. A 15 means no result. Will the party's magically aided foraging be successful? Despite having 2 days worth of wolf meat, there's no harm in trying for more food. A 1 to 3 on a d6 will indicate success. A 1. Alright, I'll say that the party discovers a hickory tree with plenty of nuts. They're able to get a day's worth of food that won't quickly go bad from it. This is proving to be a very lucky day, at least so far. I still have to make a wandering encounter check. A 5 or 6 on a d6 means there will be one. The roll. A 3 means there is not. No complaints with day 21. I could use a few more like that. This feels like a good place to take a quick break. I'll be right back after this brief message. Chapter 26. Part 2. Day 21. Evening. Mythic event meaning. Proposed weapons. Party status. Achillea, 9 out of 9 hit points. Cord, 14 out of 14. Dureni, 12 of 12. Tentir, 6 out of 15 after receiving 1 point of natural healing. Fairwind, 15 out of 18 after receiving 1 point of natural healing. Supplies. The companions have 12 portions of food and 12 portions of water remaining. Spells available. Achillea can cast Shrink ×2 and Glitter Dust. Cord can cast Entangle and Slow Poison. Fairwind watched and listened as Achillea and Dureni, off to the side, engaged in some kind of intense conversation. Dureni did most of the talking. He kept on pointing between Tentir, who sat with Cord and Robin, and the awful-tasting strip of meat in his hand. Earlier, when they'd made camp, Fairwind had blessed the wolf meat to reverse any decay and to make it safe to eat. It still tasted foul, and he knew from the previous meal that the flavor would linger in his mouth for hours. But at least it kept them fed, and this time they could chase the meal with a few hickory nuts, though most of those needed to be saved. Fairwind poked the little campfire they had made with a stick. Its flame was weak, and he was considering adding more kindling to it, when Achillea cleared her throat and said his name.
Brother Fairwind,
She began.
Dureni wants me to ask you if you could try to heal Tentir the way you did for Cord.
Fairwind put down his stick and faced the pair. Dureni was looking at him intently.
Alas, Sadal will grant me but one miracle each day. I will need to prove my wisdom and good judgment before he will grant more. In short, Achillea, I may either ensure that the food we eat does not spoil, or I can heal some of Tentir's wounds, but not both.
Achillea looked nonplussed for a second, then turned to Dureni and translated the cleric's reply. Dureni did not hesitate to answer.
He wishes you to heal his brother.
Achillea spoke the obvious.
Very well,
Fairwind replied.
but I cannot do so until tomorrow.
Another quick exchange between Achillea and Dureni followed.
Why can't you do it today?
By way of answer, Fairwind held up the half-eaten strip of wolf meat in his hand. With that settled, the companions ate what they could of the bad-tasting food and discarded the rest. Then they kicked dirt over the ashes of their little fire and broke camp, hoping to make a few more miles before it got dark. They walked in single file, as usual, but now Dureni took the lead, with Tentir behind him, followed by Achillea, then Cord, with Robin perched on his shoulder and twittering constantly in his painted ear. Fairwind brought up the rear. The rolling landscape became more dynamic with each mile they passed. The hills grew taller and the valleys deeper. Eventually the companions came to a large woods, so densely packed with thorny cockspur that they could not go through it, and were forced to alter course and go around. It was an hour after sunset when they found a place to make camp on the side of a rock-strewn knoll. Achilea sat apart from the others and read from her book of spells by moonlight. Earlier that day, she had memorized her shrink spell twice, since, during the fight with the direwolves, she had been unable to contribute much. Fairwind and Durrani both took to their bedrolls early, while Robin and Cord kept each other company, preparing to keep watch over the others through the coming night. Tentir was tired, but his injuries had made it hard for him to sleep the night before, and he knew they would again. So he stayed up, sitting with the sword of Lirhain across his lap, running his finger over the little etchings and wondering what they might mean. At one point he looked up and thought he saw one of the blink dogs watching him from another hill, but just then a cloud passed in front of the moon and all became dark. When the cloud passed by and the moon's silvery light returned, the creature was gone. A typical magic sword in D&D has a plus bonus and may or may not have other powers besides. Over my gaming life, I've noticed that static attributes like these can pose a problem over long campaigns. Here's what I mean. A +1 sword is a great find for a fighter at low and mid levels, but later in the game, it might seem kind of inadequate. To remedy this, DMs will commonly introduce new and better weapons as the characters proceed to achieve higher levels. Have you ever been in a game where a character finds a new magical weapon that renders their old one practically useless? You might have seen fighters carrying around old +1 swords, or even outright abandon them because they found something better. I've seen that plenty of times, and it's pretty immersion-breaking stuff. In an effort to solve the problem, I had an idea last season that I'm going to start using more and more. Magical weapons, and potentially other magical items as well, will level up as those who wield them do. This won't occur on a 1-to-1 ratio, but for every few levels Tentir reaches, I'll likely decide that the Sword of Lirhain will improve too. It might become +2, or latent powers might be quote-unquote unlocked. I think this solves the problem of having useless magic items, and it frees me as the DM from feeling like I should drop more magical weapons as treasure. Anyway, for now, Tentir's sword is simply a +1 short sword. With that detail covered, I think it's time to make hex crawl rolls for day 22. For weather. An 18. The beautiful weather continues with cooler temperatures brought on by the previous day's showers. Stumble upon. A 2. Yikes, that was close. I'm not ready for any more nasty surprises. A roll for foraging is next. A 6 means nothing edible is found. Finally, there's a chance for wandering encounters. A 5. Okay, somehow I knew there would be one. I'm going to make the rest of the rolls off mic. Hang on for just a second. Okay, I'm back and I have got the random encounter figured out. But I'm going to save it for the next episode because I have a sudden urge to make a hard left turn. Chapter 26. Part 3. 22 years ago. Somewhere in the woods near Summerhill.
I propose we all lower our weapons,
said Eulaloon. The elf maiden held a curved short sword in her hand, and its gleaming edge remained up despite her suggestion. Eulaloon eyed the sprites as they buzzed around her, but trying to count and keep track of them all would be impossible. There were at least 10, maybe more. She was in a very bad situation. The sprite she addressed was not flitting about as the others were. It hovered in front of her, holding a beetleskin buckler in one hand and a tiny spear in the other. Its tip, she noticed with some concern, was smeared with something green and oily. Twin coils of orange hair fell over the sprite's shoulders. Its eyes were like flecks of emerald. It did not smile as it waited for her reply.
You go where you're not meant to go,
it declared in her tongue.
Wherefore do you trespass here, elfling?
I did not intend to trespass,
was Eulaloon's reply. To be honest, she had no wish to submit to this fairy. She was a fierce warrior, both headstrong and proud. She was also wise enough to see that there was little chance of fighting out of the situation.
I cannot accept that. You should know better than to cross state borders. You are a creature of the woods, are you not?
The sprite seemed to be growing angrier by the word.
not of these woods.
Eulaloon replied in what she hoped was a calming voice.
I doubt your word. Those are not like us. I can speak false and freely.
Perhaps a bargain can be struck.
Eulalu knew enough about the small folk to be aware of their fondness for barter.
There will be no bargain.
Roared the sprite in a voice of tiny wrath. In response, the other sprites began to orbit her more rapidly. Then she felt something sharp poke the back of her knee and could not help but let out a little cry.
You must be punished for your intrusion. Perhaps you would like to wear the face of a bear?
Eulalu felt another jab, this time in her left side.
Ouch! Please stop.
She moved her sword by instinct.
Aha! She wishes to fight. I know the right curse for a shrew like this.
Another little spearhead went into the back of her neck. Now she felt the ground roll beneath her feet as though she were drunk and knew the fey poison would come over her soon. The tiny voice continued to threaten.
What made you fall in love with the first vile creature you...
Desperately, not thinking clearly, she had slashed the air in front of her and cut the sprite leader clean in half. The top and the bottom fell to her feet and began to ooze blue blood. A commotion of buzzing exploded around her, as though she had just disturbed a dozen hornets' nests at once. Then, as her blurring vision made out the shapes of 4 of the sprites forming up in a line in front of her, she swooned and collapsed to the ground. Thank you for listening to Tale of the Manticore. If you'd like to help the show, there are lots of ways to do so. You can recommend it online or to friends. You can like and repost episode announcements on social media. You can pick up one of my offerings on Drive-Thru-RPG, for example, my new One Shot in the Dark expansion module and maker kit. You can also buy a Tale of the Manticore t-shirt at www.beararts.store. Finally, you can rate or review the show on your podcatcher of choice. I'm extremely grateful for your support. At this point, I'd like to share a listener review. This one was left by OP Mugiwara on Apple Podcasts. OP Mugiwara writes, I've always been a fan of D&D and lacking the time to play RPGs, this podcast was a huge blessing. The storytelling is captivating and not predetermined. None of the characters are safe and anything can happen, making it really suspenseful. I'm enjoying the dice rolls during the story, giving it an added thrill, and we can feel like we're sitting at the same table as the DM. Makes me want to do my own die roll and see how I would have done. Keep up the great work. I started listening a week ago, and I simply can't stop. Glad there are a few more seasons to go. My commutes are now enjoyable. OP Mugiwara, this is the kind of review that podcasters dream about, and it really means the world to me. I love that you feel like you're at the table with me as I play. How fantastic is that? I'm also thrilled to have made your commute a bit better. I remember feeling the exact same way about the Iron Realm when I first discovered that show, and so I am more than happy to be paying it forward. Thanks very much for your review. Next, I'd like to thank my fabulous cast of actors. 2 members of the core cast are here, Kai Ellen as Dureni and David Cooper as Fairwind. Eulalu is beautifully played by Liz from the Arcane Discoveries podcast, and the sprite leader she accidentally slices in half is voiced by the excellent and prolific Mike Taylor, head of Chaotic Chronicles and co-host of the SideQuest podcast. For those curious to learn a bit more about Tale of the Manticore, I keep a blog where I post all kinds of show and RPG-related stuff, like art, maps, tables, crafts, and show notes. You can find it at taleofthemanticore.blogspot.com. To get in touch with me, I'm taleofthemanticore.bluesky.social, Tale of the Manticore podcast on Instagram, or taleofthemanticore@gmail.com. Oh yeah, a quick reminder that soloroleplayersnetwork.com is now live, and on behalf of all the members, I'd like to invite you to come on by, browse some new shows, and even leave us a voicemail via the link at the bottom if you're so inclined. The adventure will continue on the next episode of Tale of the Manticore. It's the story where chaos rolls.